and this is Changeling, the next step in my Itch.iOdyssey. Let's get rid of this green that's floating up on there. It's going to be distracting. I wonder if this uses a controller. I believe this is a visual novel. Yes, my Itch.iOdyssey. That is to say that I picked it up a part of the Itch.io bundle, the racial justice bundle, and I'm trying to complete them all. Maybe. Might take me the next decade or so, but I'm going to give it a try. Let's click on new game. Let's go with Nora. It suggested Nora. Nora's seemed... Nora Lewis. Why not? Now the story begins, Nora Lewis. Let's put the controller down. When I was little, I dreamed of being carried away to a far-off land. It was a recurring dream of flying through the air, surrounded by softly singing voices. Back then, I read a book after book of fairy tales in my grandmother's study. The kind where good children didn't make it out of the dark swamp unscathed. Sometimes goblins won. During the day, I would run through the forest by our house and pretend the stories were real. Every tree was a sentinel watching over me, and the rustling leaves were the sweet whispers of fairies coaxing me further and further from the house. Then it crumbled. The trees and games had to be left behind. Books were left to gather dust on the shelves, and dreams that were left to fade into memory. Years passed, and all that remained were the distant games and pretend play of childhood. Back then I didn't know that real fairy tales were darker than anything I could have possibly have dreamed up on my own. Chapter 1. Common Route. Homecoming. We had nearly reached the new house. I was eager to get out of this cramped car and see the new place. The long road trip wasn't agreeing with me, and I couldn't complain too much. I could put some effort into the voice, but I'm not. I'm doing my voice. Because it might sound like... If I try and do a voice, it'll sound like I'm taking the piss. Even though it might sound like I'm taking the piss now, I'm just reading it as I would read it, by the way. After 5 years in the city I hated, we were finally moving back into Pine Hollow, the place where I grew up. That alone was enough to keep my sanity intact during the tense trip back. Unfortunately, the reason behind the move wasn't fantastic. Grandpa was ill again, and this time was under strict orders to take it easy. Since he had to avoid stress, he needed Dad's help with his business. Of course, he didn't think so, but Grandma was adamant to get help or retire. So we were on our way back so Dad could take over, in theory anyway. Not that Grandpa would let him. In any case, Dad wasn't too happy about leaving his current job, or our house in the city behind, much less moving back across state lines to our previous home. I was, though. I'm sorry, I just saw the expression change. I missed Grandma and Grandpa. I missed the trees and the looming embrace of the mountains, and that made Pine Hollow feel enclosed and protected. I missed my best friend, and what I wouldn't miss was the stifling humidity of the city, the constant smell of the hot rubber and car exhaust, not to mention the lack of stairs. God, John, tell me how you feel about stairs. Oh, I miss them. I miss those stairs. Sorry, I'll carry on reading. Not to mention the lack of stars. And the way the rain made everything smell like rust instead of the warm earth. It wasn't terrible. The parks were pretty, and being nearer to the water had been fun. School hadn't been awful, and I was hardly a loner girl skulking in the corners. I had friends, and I wouldn't miss them. And I would miss them even, sorry. But Allie wasn't just a friend. She was practically family. No one in the city could compare with that. And the city had never felt like home. I smiled slightly as the scenery beyond the car windows became more and more familiar. My tiredness faded to excitement. This new house isn't far from the old one, is it? They're only a few miles apart. This one's in a different neighbourhood, though. So I'm going to stop here just a brief second. So there is a style to this game, right? Everyone is overly pretty. The freckles and the eyes. It's... a little uncanny. And I don't even I know it's not supposed to be uncanny, but I'm not meaning that as an insult. It's just something to do with style. I can't quite put my finger on it. Dad said that, but from the look of Spencer's face, I didn't think it was true, not for him anyway. Dad pointed to a small forested mountain a few miles ahead. The neighbourhood nestled. It's a very, it's a very feminine style of drawing, and I'm trying to figure out, because I don't think feminine is actually a very good descriptor of a style of drawing, but more like, oh, I can tell a girl drew this. And again, I don't mean that as a good or a bad thing there. So I'm trying to identify what it is that makes me think that. What was the game I played recently? It was a point-and-click game about a girl called Frambo. Frambo also felt like a game that was drawn by, I say a girl, you know, a woman. Someone of the female persuasion. That sounds terrible. I was trying to avoid the word female there, and I made it about 10 times worse. I don't like the internet's ruined me. Just the word female when someone says it on the internet, it gets a little bit weird. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm going to continue reading this rather than just making a point about the style of drawing. What is it, though? Because it's not that it's this sort of watercolour style. Is it watercolour style? Because I'm thinking of a different game now that has that watercolour style. That doesn't make me think of this sort of feminine. What was it again? That sort of puzzle game about making mechanisms move around. I don't know the name off the top of my head, I'm afraid. Anyway, I better continue because there's only so much time, and I can talk about some of this during the impressions portion of the video portion. The neighbourhood is nestled right at the foot there, and winds up at the slope. It feels raw. So I've got a Cornish accent, it's going to be a difficult word to say. But it's within walking distance of the town square. I'm glad it didn't look like much development had happened in the years we'd gone. In fact, it didn't look like much had changed at all. So much forest. I almost forgot what it was like. Looks easy to get lost in. So I'll say this. Which I don't know which one's the two parents. I mean, that's the mother, right? I don't know which one's the father. I think that one, but I'm not 100% sure. Like, if you'd mix these fours up, I wouldn't be able to tell you which ones were adults and which ones weren't adults. I mean, they're all adults, right? But which ones were parents and which ones were children? Are they... Yes. I guess that's it. His eyes are quite big. Lips quite prominent. Maybe it's just... Because it's how emphasis works, right? Like, it'd be really easy to say, like, the reason that you can tell that a man draws stuff is because it's like, it's all kind of... It's all boobs, right? Why am I talking like that? You know what I mean, though. Fan service. But, like, that's like taking the easy way out when I'm describing something. When I say kind of feminine or masculine, take away the sort of the cheap fan service, like, you know, like visual, not take away all anime games because all of them are drawn in that way, right? Yes, sorry, I'll continue reading. I do wonder. Is this all reading? Is this just a novel? Or is this a game? It might just take him a really long time to get to it. I gave him a sharp look around and found him staring at me in that disquieting way he'd picked up over the last few years. He was already trying to start a fight about that. I quickly looked away, unwilling to give him the satisfaction. Another thing I'd missed was me and Spencer being close, like everyone seemed to think the twins ought to be. Okay, the twins. But I didn't think that just moving back to Pine Hollow was going to fix that, though. Not with jabs like that aimed at me. Let it go already. No one is gonna get lost. Okay, I think that's... yeah. And I want you both to give me your word you'll be careful in the forest. I don't want to have to ban you from hiking. Mum was starting to. I slumped back in the seat, watching the kaleidoscope of fall colours slide past. I'm hoping I get to... Like, I don't know how long this game is, but obviously if nothing changes, if there's no changeling, it's going to be very difficult to talk about it. And I appreciate I've been talking, so, like, you know, there's a point, and I need to reach the point. And I'm distracting myself from getting it. I had expected that the issue to be brought up now, that we're moving back. But I hadn't expected to start getting lectured before we even reached the new house. The realtor said there would be trails. But you know that probably means animal trails, not actual hiking trails. It can be dangerous if you aren't careful. Not little kids anymore. There are lots of coyotes here, and cougars, and even bears. There's also a pretty deep ravine in the woods behind the house, from what I understand. We just want to make sure everyone stays safe now that we're back. We don't want... Geez, it's been 5 years. I couldn't entirely blame them for their uneasiness about the whole thing. The disappearance 5 years ago. My disappearance 5 years ago was the reason we moved in the first place. Not just the disappearance itself, though I'd been gone for more than a week, and that had definitely caused some drama. But there was an issue of how I showed back up. The other things that happened around that time. 5 years later, my family was still shadowed by the repercussions of what happened back then. Of course I wanted them to move on. Everything back then had been my fault. Not just the drama my family had endured as a whole, but also what happened to Spencer. Sorry, I said that in a really dumb way. Those weren't wounds that could just heal overnight. Not the emotional ones. Not the physical ones, and definitely not the ones inflicted on our relationship. No amount of apologizing ever helped. Dad turned into a quiet street. What? Dad turned into a quiet street that wound up its way into the trees. But all this is very nice. A few rooftops poked through the foliage. It was a great neighborhood that reminded me a little of where we'd lived before. The sweetness of the nostalgia helped wash away some of the lingering bitterness from the previous conversation. I loved the place from the moment we turned onto the street and passed over a trickling creek that vanished into the woods. Down the foot of the mountain, and within the walking distance of the houses, was the main street of the town, filled with little shops and restaurants, but the neighborhood hidden behind a thick wall of trees and curled around the mountainside felt secluded and quiet. There's quite a lot to put in between commas. It was beautiful and perfect. Nora, go check up on the boxes up in your room to make sure they've put the right ones there. I'll let you unpack your things first, then I want you downstairs to help in the kitchen. Spencer, same to you. Okay, that's definitely the parents. Movers had already arranged most of the furniture in the house under Grandma's supervision, but the boxes, similar with smaller items, personal belongings, still needed unpacking. Since she had to take care of Grandpa, Grandma couldn't do much more than tell them where to put the furniture and try to get the basics set up for us. We still have a ton of work to do. Mum immediately busied herself trying to hang curtains and make the house look lived in. Dad started ripping into boxes in the family room. Spencer vanished upstairs. I left Mom in the kitchen and went to take a look at the rest of downstairs. The house is really great. Glad you like it, honey. It wasn't you, but it had been renovated inside. It looked modern and new, but still felt old and full of memories. And someone else's history. Oh, there's the trees again. I love it already. My bedroom was right next to Spencer's. The only thing separating them was a small shared bathroom. That was going to be so much fun. He tended to act like any intrusion into his personal space was a huge affront, so I had to walk on eggshells if I didn't want to fight with him. I can only begin to imagine his whining about having to share counter space with all my icky girl things like a hairbrush and hand lotion. The horror. That aside, my room was pretty nice. It was bright and airy, and I loved seeing my things already put exactly where I'd have put them anyway. Looks like Grandma even got my bed ready. All I had to do was unpack the rest of my personal stuff. I started with my school things, pulling the tape off. Okay, they are children. I can't tell from the drawings. Pulling the tape off. I'm assuming they're like teenagers, like older young adult age, right? This has a kind of YA vibe to it. Pulling the tape off one box to get at what's inside. Suddenly the door to my side of the bathroom burst open. Spencer walked in, dropping a dusty box. Okay, a bathroom with 2 doors sounds like a terrible idea. I guess that's a feature. You'd have to go in and lock the other side of the door, and then unlock both before you could leave. It'd be really annoying. Dropping a dusty box on my clean bedspread. You could have at least knocked. They gave me one of yours. Don't pick a fight, just stay calm. Move the box to the floor without saying anything. Spencer started to leave. Hang on, let me make sure I don't have any of yours. He hopefully didn't make the habit of bursting in. Being my twin brother didn't mean he got to invade my privacy whenever he wanted. Especially since he'd have an aneurysm if I slammed into his room that way. I quickly sorted through the boxes to see if any of his were lurking in my room. Sure enough, I found one with his name clearly scrawled on top. Here, I think this one has some of your clothes. I nudged the box towards him with my foot. He scowled at me before picking it up, stalking back into his room. The door on his side of the bathroom slams shut. Yeah, you're welcome. Felt like every interaction with him was like that lately. It was worse than ever, actually. But then, he wasn't likely to forget his negative memories of Pine Hollow soon. I was pretty sure he was just annoyed by the fact I was happy to be back, which meant taking it out on me, of course. He never loved this place the way I had anyway, so he wasn't really inclined to overlook the bad memories in the first place. I sighed, continued pulling things out of boxes. Patience. Patience. It was just hard to have all this stuff stirred up again. I mean, even if I accepted responsibility for what had happened back then, I didn't think it meant that I also had to sentence myself to guilt and misery forever. Not for something that had happened before I was 12, something I couldn't even remember. I left my boxes on the floor and went to peer out the window. I pressed my head against the glass, watching the trees sway slightly in the fall breeze. It was probably stupid to say I felt more complete in this town. At a glance, it looked like the dozens of others you could find scattered through the area. It was beautiful and sunny sometimes, and others it was really eerie. There were days when the clouds hung low over the mountains. The fog was super thick through the trees, and you could almost imagine it was haunted. The truth was that I'd felt I'd lost something in this place 5 years ago. Maybe I was only happy to be here because I felt like I'd had a chance to get it back. I left the window, went back to unpacking before Mom started yelling at me to come join the battle of the unbubble wrapping in the kitchenware. In any case, I was being annoyingly sentimental. Pine Hollow was special to me. Maybe, but it wasn't as special in general. It was one of those little towns with more urban legends than any reasonable person could count. Hundreds of stories about creepy happenings in the woods, and for every one of them, no matter how unlikely, there were dozens of people willing to believe it. That's probably why people were so quick to leap on the oddities of my disappearances. They weren't really even that odd, at least I didn't think so. The rational public wrote them off as strange but explainable. I got lost, then got unlost. Big deal. Though to be fair, the first time it happened I was 9, and when I got unlost, I was also unhurt, even after 10 days in the woods alone. I was definitely lucky that I got home safely. It wasn't supernatural. It wasn't supernatural, no. Not like some people apparently insisted. It was just the amnesia that caught people off guard, I think. I couldn't remember a thing that happened while I was missing. I still couldn't. But psychogenic amnesia was a thing. What kid would want to remember being terrified in the woods for a week and a half? Not me, clearly. I started filling my closet with clothes and carefully lined up my shoes and boots. I should totally get a new pair to celebrate being home. I left the closet and began arranging my study things on the desk. We'll be starting back to school on Monday after an inevitably busy weekend. The same private school we'd gone to before we left. That was the only thing I had mixed feelings about. There had just been such a fuss about my last disappearance, the one when I was 12. That one had been a real catalyst for everything. That had been when everything just broke. I'd been missing for nearly 2 full weeks. The newspapers were running dramatic and hopeless stories. There was speculation about whether I was a runaway or if it was a ploy for attention. After all, it happened to me before. There was search parties out every day looking for any sign of me. My parents were heartbroken. Again. Spencer was out with a search party one evening and got separated from them. They heard him scream and feared the worst. He ran out of the woods for a short time later in hysterics, clutching at one of his eyes, and when I walked out after him in a daze but unharmed. They never found anything wrong with his eye. He lost the vision in it, but no one knew the reason. He was saying a lot of crazy things at the time. No one knew if he'd hit his head or maybe gotten attacked by a stray cougar. And again, I didn't remember a thing. There was a lot of public interest in this incident due to the fact that there was the second one involving our family, and me specifically. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of criticism, and it's probably a bit unfair, which is it could be a little bit faster. I know it's your story, and you just want to kind of bathe in it. Bathe, right? And this is all set up we need. I get that. But I get the point. Like, it could be a little... Like, I'm not saying cut straight to change the action. I'm just saying, like, editing down... I write, right? I'm trying to make a computer game, but I've written before. And you do, like, you just want to write, and you write and write, and you go, everything I write has a purpose, and everything's... I've put so much effort into things. But your stuff is better if you cut it down. There's the phrase "kill your darlings," right? You go, oh, but that's my favourite bit. That bit's got it'll be stronger for it. The point you're trying to make will be stronger for it. Also, and I also get you have to write for somebody who knows nothing about what you're explaining. But I don't necessarily need a play-by-play of literally everything she does, right? And it feels like I'm gonna get that. It feels like when I step outside. No, I know what's gonna happen when I step outside. She'll step outside the house, and we'll get a description. The doorstep before she goes, and she'll say some memories. We won't even move from the doorstep for like another couple of minutes. And then we'll step into the forest. Like, even if we get to the doorstep, I'm not certain we're going to get to the doorstep. I'll try that. And by the way, I'm not trying to sound harsh. I'm sure it's fine, and I'm sure if I'd given the game more than like 35 minutes, then, you know, I'm being horribly unfair to all these games I'm playing. Also bear in mind, the last game I played less of. This is considerably better than the last game. The last game broke. Oh no, not the last game. The next game, because I accidentally recorded it. The last game was fine. The game after this video, because I recorded them in the wrong order accidentally. Anyway. There was a lot of public interest in the incident, due to the fact that I was the second one involving our family, and me specifically. People loved mysteries, and I'd given them one. And I wasn't making it up. I wasn't. And then what sort of trauma could give me amnesia twice? No one could do anything but speculate endlessly. My family tried to get on with life. She'd be given a counsellor, by the way, if this happened twice. Especially when she was 12. She'd be have a counsellor forced on her. But it hadn't been easy. More like impossible. There had just been too much stupid speculation and skepticism. At school there were rumours that we'd both done the entire thing for attention. Spencer's injury was fake, and he had a psychotic episode and tried to kill me. It was a mess. So we just left. Ugh, why am I even thinking about this again? It's as if there's an audience. Yeah, okay. I shook off all of those old negative thoughts. It was years ago. People had forgotten. Everything was going to be fine. I stacked the empty boxes off to the side, on the opposite side of the room, set up my painting things. The cabinet for my art supplies was nearby, and I quickly stacked everything inside. The study room was going to be perfect for painting. It even faced north. I loved that they remembered that when they picked this room for me. Alright, you finished yet? I'm nearly done. Give me a few more minutes. I turned my attention to my small library of old books. I had all the classics, all used and worn and beautiful. And of course, there was a lot of Shakespeare. Of course there was. It only took a few minutes to get the books on the shelves and tried to organise them properly tomorrow. Sorry, that was quippy, wasn't it? If Shakespeare's never mentioned again in this story, you shouldn't have put that there. It doesn't have to... It doesn't have to be big either. It can just be a small illusion. Satire. Something. But if you just wrote that in because you needed a person, you needed a recognisable name, you shouldn't have picked Shakespeare. Anyway, sorry. That does definitely just sound judgmental for me. Once I finished unpacking, what teenagers have Shakespeare? Unless it's like a school assignment. Once I finished unpacking, I gave my room, because, you know, just Pixies, Midsummer Night's Dream, there might be something. I gave my room a satisfied once-over before heading downstairs to help Mum unpack the kitchen. We might see Puck. What should I do with my boxes in my room? We'll have to figure out the recycling pickup schedule. Like, I don't give a shit about the recycling schedule. Like, it's clearly not what the game's about. Do you get what I mean? Like, I'm going to save my game just in case. Let's quick save. Okay, so we can crush them and set it out. For now, just leave them. Okay. Meanwhile, can you set these out on the back porch? She motioned to a few large empty flower pots near the table. No problem. When you're back, I have a few things for you to take to the basement. Yay! Come on, hurry it up. Hi, Captain. I hefted a stack of pots and managed to wobble my way to the back door with them. Navigating the door handle was a bit interesting, but I managed to get outside without breaking anything. I set them near the... This doesn't count, this isn't the front door, this is the back door. I set them down near the brick columns and looked across the overgrown backyard. Something interesting caught my eye, and I hopped off the perch to investigate. By the way, if they never go to the front door, then I'm wrong anyway, so... At the back, in a little hollowed-out area near the fence, was a large ring of white mushrooms with round caps. A fairy ring. I smiled and crouched down and poked one of them. We had one at our last house too. Dad had tried everything to get rid of it, but it was very persistent. No matter what he treated it with, it always came back. I wouldn't be happy about it for the same reason, but I liked having it there. I smiled slightly, remembering playing with Spencer in our previous backyard. We'd play tag and whoever made it inside the circle first would be safe. Or we'd lay inside it and we'd pretend we could see fairies dancing on the mushroom tops, playing on the tree branches. Took a long, deep breath. Glad to be back. What are you doing out here? I sighed and stood, carefully brushing off my jeans. Why does he always have to sound so angry? Mum has more work for you to do. You know, if you have time between daydreaming and communing with nature. Is it possible for you to speak to me like I'm a human being? It would be if you were a human being. I hated the way he said things like that, with a completely straight face. Haha, very amusing. I assure you that sisters are indeed human brothers. However, I'm not sure about... Oh, yeah, okay. Brothers, however, I'm not sure about. Normally one would assume he hadn't meant it literally, but I could never tell with him. Just get back inside. As he turned away, he snapped a foot out, kicking over a few of the mushrooms. Ooh, some gameplay! It's time to get angry. I couldn't help but get angry. It was probably petty of me, but he always did that kind of thing, so I was so tired of it. I grabbed his arm, holding it slightly, and then he pulled it away. Why do you always have to do things like that? Who cares? They're just mushrooms. What's your problem? You are! You don't always have to lash out at things just because I like them. He opened his mouth as if to respond, but didn't quite get it out. What are you two doing out here? Quit fighting and get back in there. And help? Spencer yanked his arm out of my grasp, narrowing his eyes. Don't touch me. His angry hiss echoed in my head as I watched him stalk back inside. I looked down at the crumbled mushrooms lying in broken bits on the grass. They'd grow back. I was stupid to care. I hated seeing something messed up for a stupid reason. I hated that he had to ruin everything, like some kind of creepy assassin of joy. I shoved my hands in my pockets and headed back inside. There was a quiet hustle of dried leaves behind me, and I glanced back. There was nothing there. Probably a squirrel or something. Casting one last gaze at the fairy ring, I stepped back into the kitchen, prepared for a list of chores to complete before dinner. I was just glad that Dad was already talking about ordering pizza instead of trying to cook. That night, oh my word, we skipped ahead. We skipped ahead. I had a vivid dream. In it was a sense of what I was looking for. In it was the sense I was looking for something that I had to find my way home. There were tall trees draped in emerald moss and groping branches that reached to the sun. There was a faint singing, childish voices whose words I couldn't make out. It was a dream that left the taste and smell of warm, wet earth in my mouth as I woke. The smell quickly faded and was replaced by that of bacon and eggs as sunlight warmed my eyelids, beckoning me to wake up. Sorry, I know that's not a sound. I rolled over. Sorry, I like waking up like that. Sounds lovely. I wake up, which is why can't I not be awake? Yeah. Anyway, I rolled over and snuggled deep into my blankets. Mom was already up. I could hear her downstairs talking to Dad as she cooked breakfast. A prickle of sunlight against my eyelids coaxed me out of sleep and warmed my face. Nora, I know you want to sleep in, but we have a lot of unpacking to do. I'm up. Sort of. The last remnants of my dream faded as I staggered out of bed, and to my closet to rummage for something to wear. It was a dream I had many times, but not for a while. The sense of having to get home, I assumed it was a dream from when I'd got lost in the woods. From when I'd gotten spirited away, as my grandmother always called it. Being back must have been dredging up some of the old feelings from back then. She was well annoyed when somebody made a film with that name. I glanced towards my half-open curtains. It looks a bit chilly this morning, so I should probably find something warm. This far north, it always felt like summer simply stopped abruptly, giving way to instant autumn. Yesterday when we arrived, it had been sunny with a hint of chill, but I was betting the mornings were pretty cold. Hey, Mum said to stop falling around and get your butt downstairs. I nearly jumped out of my skin when he walked into my room. In response, I snatched a stray sock and threw it his way. I'm getting dressed, you keep. And shut the door. Fine. I marched across the room and slammed the door in Spencer's face. Threw my clothes on and wrangled my curly hair into some semblance of a ponytail. Not exactly the height of stylishness, but we still had unpacking to do. Mum could be a slave driver. Punching over fashion, or whatever. I go downstairs in time to see Mum setting out the plates. First breakfast in the new house. Wow, you really went all out. Bacon, eggs, even pancakes. Glorious, glorious coffee. Mum walked it by, munching on something, and Dad walked by. The two mums. I mean, you could have two mums, but you know what I mean. Mum scowled at him. Sit at the table. I was imagining her literally twice. If you want to eat. Sure, busy. He reached for another piece of bacon, but slapped his hand. He just grinned at her. I'm gonna just save. And I'm also gonna... Yeah, I got to the front. Okay. I'm gonna let you go, but I want to see if I can get anywhere. I'm just gonna quick as fast as possible. This is a lot, by the way. Passing walls, blimey. I don't think I would have gone to the content. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to cut to the impressions. I did try to get to some content, but I think the amount of click just now, I probably would have done another episode's worth of talking, right? It's a lot. And a part of this is, it's just squarely not aimed at me, right? I wish I could click faster. Like, the skip button doesn't seem to work. I'm trying to see if anything supernatural happens. We're meeting a lot of boys. He's got 2 different colour eyes. Just gonna trust everyone. Okay, now I've given this game a little bit of extra time that I wouldn't normally give to other games. Because I'm trying to give it the benefit. There we go, we're in the woods. I'm reading fast now. Oh, okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Let's cut to the impressions, which I'll actually record tomorrow, and then we'll see what's on the next. What's the next? Right, these are gonna be my impressions for Changeling. Oh God, I'm gonna have to draw a forest, aren't I? That's okay. It's a forest at night. We shall set the scene with trees. No. Forest at night, John. Forest at night. We'll use the pig. And we'll work our way to the lightest colours, I guess. These are trees. They're not finished. They're supposed to be backdropped against the darkness, but obviously we're going to want to put some leaves on those trees, and those leaves are going to make it considerably brighter. But they are going to look a bit more like trees now, so John, are you just going to draw it? Are you actually going to talk about the game? Well, I actually think I hit the nail on the head with the game already. Won't lie. What else? Well, we want the general grass, don't we? The general grass of the forest. What we're doing now. You know what? Let's head towards that place over there. Why did I do it in pixel art? It wasn't a pixel game. I don't know. I might actually do another pass with a different colour. This is sort of a clearing, I guess. Oh no, I made it smaller. Did not mean to make it smaller. I'll quick briefly land. So yes, but in case you want me to say it again, it was a visual novel. The only gameplay element is I got one choice at one point in 45 minutes in. And when I skipped ahead, there was a few more of those, but there didn't seem to be any sort of gameplay outside of me choosing. That's not a bad thing. That makes it a visual novel and not a story. Let's change our pen to this one and sort of go over it like so. And I don't know. Add a mushroom circle. That was an actual thing, wasn't it? A fairy circle. So yes, it seemed to be very much aimed at somebody who wasn't me, and that's fine. Not everything needs to be for me, but it does mean it's going to be kind of difficult to talk about it. We're going to add some little details here and there, I guess. in the hopes that it makes the picture look less rubbish. There we go. But yes, okay, I'm going to need to stop talking. I kind of think the trees don't look bad. Let's add a couple more tree details, so. There we go. Maybe a smaller thing. There's supposed to be some extra branches. So I had some issues with the writing, the Shakespeare, just the reference to Shakespeare just thrown out there, to the point that, but like, it might be important to the story for all I know, but I can't tell. I genuinely can't tell. So like, how much can I really say about that? Let's, you know, this works much better for grass, doesn't it? Let's do this. But I think it was overly verbose. I wanted to get to kind of the cool bit, and maybe the cool bit was actually meeting the guys at school. You know, maybe that was the feature. It seemed to have a kind of romance element to it, and again, I must stress, not for me, but somebody wants that, so that's a good thing if somebody wanted that as a thing. This is why we want kind of the double, right? The double grass, so to give it a sense of that. We left the pink, which is good, so we can say these are I would have liked to have seen what the Changeling was. And I didn't, which is a bit of a shame. But other than that, the art looked good. I really can't say much because it was what was in the video. I like drawing the picture. Yeah. What can I say? I'm just repeating myself at this stage. Let's skip ahead. Let's hand this in. Still got to be. Could have probably done with a darker. Could have used the black for impressions, couldn't I? That's why I didn't get any. Draw muscles! Oh, what's our next game? We'll see if that's appropriate. Right, so that was Changeling, an urban fantasy visual novel that explores romance with a dangerous power. The next game we're going to play is Fugue in Void, an experimental exploration game. Let's have a closer look at it. That's right, I create small experimental indie games. Most of them focus heavily on neo-brutalist architecture and other more modern art, or I like to explore philosophical ideas in concrete ways. I see what you did there with the... See what you did there? Fugue in Void. Project took me over 6 months. The soul is the weariest part of the body, in case you wanted to know that. This game has, on purpose, no saving system. Experiment should be done in one walkthrough and takes about 45 minutes. Take your time. Close the curtains and use headphones. Right. That's our next game. Let's quick. Right. So, I've been John Proxy. This has been Changeling. A game I've been playing as a part of my Itch.iOdyssey. Come on, get to content. I can only click so fast. Right. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you're interested in this game, I'm probably not going to play anymore. I'm sad to say. But I'm sure there's someone out there who's actually played this and reads it much better than I do. Go seek them out. Or even better, buy this game if this looks like your sort of thing. Because it's definitely somebody's sort of thing. It's just not aimed at me.